73-year-old pays $370 a month to live in a plane he bought for $100,000 from a salvage yard.
Heck yeah, man. This is so cool. I love this.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, that is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be looking at an economist's top 10 predictions for 2023 and whether or not we agree with those predictions.
Okay.
Not necessarily our predictions, just commenting on quote-unquote experts' predictions.
That's what I like. Okay.
We're going to be looking at how the housing market can impact your security clearance. Obviously, in the DMV area, Shawn, DMV meaning DC, Maryland, Virginia, not Department of Motor Vehicles. I saw on a post someone was wondering if you had sold $47 million while working in the DMV.
Oh,
because they didn't understand that.
No, we don't work.
You sold $47 million in the DMV area, not while working full-time for the DMV.
Hilarious.
So
that's such a good topic, by the way. I'm excited.
How the housing market can impact your security clearance. Then we're also going to be looking at whether Shawn Battle is in or out on 3 different properties throughout the United States. They are some eclectic properties.
Okay,
so
cool.
We'll get into that. Let's start with an article from Inman. No housing bubble, an economist's top 10 predictions for 2023. This is from Windermere Real Estate Chief Economist Matthew Gardner. Shawn, number one, there is no housing bubble. Mortgage rates rose steeply in 2022, which, coupled with the massive run-up in home prices, has some suggesting that we are recreating the housing bubble of 2007, but that could be further. That could not be further from the truth. Shawn, is there going to be a housing bubble?
I love that. I love it because I sent you an article earlier and I totally disagreed with it, but we're not using it. This is totally true. I don't believe we are in a housing bubble. I think there is so much demand out there, honestly, for housing. The reason we stopped was because it became unaffordable. The interest rates stopped everything. That is the only reason. You know, we saw high inflation. And one thing that this old article was saying that the housing caused the inflation, that's totally not true. You know, inflation was caused by different factors. I won't go into that. But I truly believe that we are not in a bubble. This isn't a bubble. This was brought up by high demand, low inventory, and low interest rates. Now, when the interest rates go crazy and affordability goes down, naturally things have to change. And that completely stopped the housing market. That's the only reason it stopped. Now, once these interest rates start creeping down again, you're going to see people start jumping in. And I believe that there's something going on here, that there are so many people predicting that the real estate market's going to be horrible in 2023, that everybody's saying the same thing. There are so many Instagram posts about this, and it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep saying it's going to go down, it's going to, because you're going to scare everybody from buying because they think it's dropping. So naturally, that's kind of how things are going to follow. But I love that this guy put it out there that said there is no housing bubble. What are you talking about? It's because interest rates popped and that stopped the market. As these things come down, as we get a hold of inflation, things are going to start humming again. And I don't think people need to be as scared as they are.
Well, negative news gets the clicks on Instagram and on YouTube. Here's how to make a YouTube thumbnail in 2023. Have your face blown up, have fire in the background, have a house, have a for sale sign, and have a graph going down. And that's how you make a YouTube real estate thumbnail in 2023.
It's so true. My 2 top viewed videos.
Did you have fire in the background?
I had a graph going down.
Yeah.
And that was about the interest rates and what's your home value now. That got over 13,000 views. And then there's another one that the same thing. I can't remember the exact topic, but it was a negative kind of thing and it got all the views. Well, now, I believe that if you go against the grain on this, and I truly believe this, I think that everybody's predicting, this is all falling. And it is because people keep humming on it, you know? And it's like, dude, listen, the reason we saw such an increase in value was because we were in a pandemic and all those people that were sitting on the sidelines. First, people were afraid to have people come through their house, right? For a year, people didn't want people coming through their houses, so naturally people didn't sell. All the buyers didn't want to go through other people's houses because they were scared of getting the virus, and so they didn't buy. And so all those people sat on the sidelines. And then as soon as people got comfortable, it started, pushing this demand. And, naturally we saw prices go further than we ever thought that they would ever go that quickly. And there needed to be a slight correction in that and slow it down a little bit. And that's what the interest rates have done. But I guarantee you the demand is still there. I'm still seeing properties sell. It's December and they're still possible.
So do you think prices nationwide are going to drop in 2023?
I think, yes. I think they're going to come down. Okay.
But how much are they going to come down?
I don't know. I think every area is different. And when I talk about real estate and my feeling of real estate, I always talk locally here in the Arlington, D.C. region.
It's a nationwide article, so we have to take that into
we have to take it into consideration. We've always said that, we probably think that a lot of these areas that saw these huge upticks in values are naturally going to have to come down because they've never seen that before. Our area has always seen that. We've always seen multiple contracts and huge demand. Whereas these areas that hadn't seen those, yes, those will drop. But it's because they had such a high pop, that naturally they have to settle down.
So you are agreeing that there is no housing bubble. That's your agreement.
I'm agreeing that there's no housing bubble in the regard of, I believe there's still a lot of demand out there.
Well, we got to define what a housing bubble is. I'm doing this for my own sake, too, because when I think housing bubble, I'm like, oh, well, too much inventory, too high prices. So housing bubble is defined as a market condition in which prices rise beyond what most believe is reasonable or sustainable. So essentially, prices are unsustainable or unreasonable. Now, I want to talk about a tweet recently by Lance Lambert. He said, he works for Fortune magazine. He's an author for Fortune magazine. Since peaking in June 2022, U.S. home prices have fallen 2.4%. That puts us just below April 2022 levels. If home prices fall 10% peak to trough, it takes prices back to October 2021 levels. If home prices fall 20% peak to trough, it takes prices back to February 2021. As if to say, prices rose so much in the past year and a half, where some would argue that if prices fall 10%, that constitutes a housing bubble. But if they were to fall 10%, we're only regressing, if you will, back to February of last year.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean. Is like, we saw prices go up 30-some% in 2 years. That's astronomical and crazy. And all right, yeah, we're going to see a correction because it went too quickly. And so naturally you have to come back down from that. Is that a housing bubble? I guess maybe it is, if that's the definition. But I mean, I think, 2 years ago, the housing market wasn't bad. 3 years ago, it wasn't bad. It's not like the bubble of 2008. It's not nowhere near the same thing. We just saw an increase in values, and a lot of people saw a huge increase in value. There was just so much money being made in that. A lot of people were taking equity and putting it other places. So if it's the fact that prices are going to come down, they have to come down. I think it's more of it's not a bubble burst. It's letting out a little bit of air. You got to let the air out of the tires because they're just too inflated.
It's like when you go to the gas station, you fill up your PSI, then you notice you went a little bit higher than the manufacturer recommendation. You got to press it a little bit, let it out a little bit.
Let it out a little bit. So we got to let it out a little bit.
The biggest thing is inventory, right? In 2007, 2008, houses are just sitting on the market. Now, new builders aren't building enough, and then there's not enough resale homes out there. So I think what we'll see is houses will fall in value. The good ones are going to go. They're good. Maybe they're not going to go for the same they went when interest rates were half of what they are now, but the good houses are still going to go. So I don't necessarily think we're in a housing bubble, but also wouldn't be surprised if nationwide, across the board, broadest paintbrush you've ever seen, things drop 5%, 10%, maybe even up to 20%.
True. Yeah.
This is quickly turning into just us talking. Yeah. We got 9 more predictions we got to go through. Number 2, mortgage rates will drop. Now, I don't know if I have the background or you have the background to predict when mortgage rates will rise, when they will drop. I do remember a Tom Ferry Instagram post where it just had the number 9. It just said 9%. And then in the comments, it was like, call your sphere, text your database, things may, head towards 9%. And I don't fault him for saying that, but we were at a point where we thought this is just never going to stop. And, Jay Powell's doing his thing. So do you even want to touch this one? Or
I mean, I don't think they're going up much further. If they do, and I'm, again, could be totally wrong, but I think they've got a grasp on inflation. Yes, even though the inflation numbers came down, they still raised interest rates the last time, but as you look at the actual mortgage rates, they've come down. So we're hovering, I think, just above 6, which is actually pretty good compared to where we were. We're still trading on that 6 level. So I don't think they're going to pop. I think they will stay around that 6,
So the article says that interest rates rose from 3.2% in early 2022 to over 7% in October. The article claims that rates will remain above 6% until fall of 2023, when they should dip that into the high 5%.
I would agree with that.
This gentleman's prediction.
Pretty on.
Number 3, don't expect inventory to grow significantly. Shawn,
I agree with that. If you look at inventory right now, in our Arlington market, it's down. It's down a lot compared to what it was, a couple of years ago. It's down. It's not growing. And the bad stuff sits, the good stuff sells. Price it right, it's going to sell. Make it look good, it's going to sell. And so I don't think there's going to be a ton of people selling. I think the demand will still be there, and I don't think inventory is going to, in my area, in this area, I don't think it's going to pop.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking is, talking to my sellers, is now a good time to sell? Hey, should I sell now? And the thing is, I don't think it's a great time to sell, but I will tell you what you're going to see is very little competition and extremely motivated buyers who have been waiting for a property just like yours to hit the market. Because when we say, hey, is now a good time to sell, like, all right, let's look in our crystal ball and look back at the last 5 years, and we can accurately predict, oh, you should have gone on the market on this date in this year. Impossible, right?
Right.
Maybe now is going to be a better time to sell in 6 months. Like, who really knows?
Who knows? And if you want to compare it to May of last year, yeah, it's a horrible time to sell. But if you want to compare it to what we think is going to happen in the spring market, will we see a flood of inventory? Nobody knows. Would you rather be the only one on the market? Yes. You'd rather be not have that competition of the spring market when everybody else is going to list. So maybe now is the best time to sell.
There's a house in Lake Barcroft just hit the market. Maybe you're aware. It's I like the 850 price range. Just read that juicy 850 mid-century modern.
It'll be gone.
Renovated.
Yeah.
I looked on Showing Time, had 8 or 9 showings.
At 850, that thing's going to buzz off the market for sure.
Number 4, no buyer's market, but more of a balanced one.
Yeah, in certain instances.
Is 2023 going to be more of a buyer's market than 2022?
Absolutely.
Because we get into this, if it's a seller's market, 6 months of inventory, buyer's market, 6 months, whatever. You're just not going to have 6 months of inventory in the DC metro area. It's just not going to happen. So I think relatively speaking, it has to be, okay, well, compared to last year, compared to 2020, is it more of a buyer's market? Well,
yes.
In my opinion, yes. Why do you say that? Well, I think that houses, they're not going to be priced as high. I think that some people have been pushed out of the market because of interest rates. So I do think it's going to be more of a buyer's market than last year.
Yeah, there's not going to be as much competition on each house. There still will be competition on certain ones. You will be able to do your home inspections. You're going to be able to have appraisal and finance contingencies, which is great. Everything, if we take a comparison to 2022 and we try to predict what's going to happen in the future, everything's going to be down a little bit because that was the best market we've ever seen in our lives. Naturally, it's going to be down. Is it going to be bad? In our area, I don't think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be pretty decent. Some areas are going to get hit, and we're seeing, we talked to our buddies in California and things are like, all right, we're already down 10%. Some areas are going to get hit like that. But I don't know. I'm staying positive. I think we're going to be okay.
Number 5, sellers will have to become more realistic. I think this one's pretty obvious. Comps are going to be pretty hard because there's not a lot of comps to pull from, at least in the Northern Virginia, DC area. And then the good comps, the comps that your seller wants are, a year old, a year and a half old. So you're going to have to do some equations to factor in the actual comp.
Yeah, a client reached out to me the other day and they were like, hey, what do you think of this house? And I looked at it and I was like, honestly, I think they're grossly overpriced. I mean, they're coming soon on the market, and I'm like, I think they're overpriced. They're pricing. If you look at the comps, they should be priced here, and they're already well over. There was one in the market for 100 days, and they were priced $40,000 or $50,000 below what this coming soon property was coming on. I'm like, it better be gold inside. If it's not, it's going to sit and they're going to get hammered.
You want gold countertops, or else they're going to get hammered. All right, number 6, workers return to work, sort of. Not much meat on this bone. Essentially, the author is just saying that, hey, workers are slowly getting back to work. I think we're beyond that point at this time.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the influx of some workers. Some are always going to be remote. It's just a changed environment.
But now people know that they probably can't live hours and hours away. So I mean, some people are full remote. Maybe they love it, but
like Meta, right?
Like Meta. Number 7, new construction activity unlikely to increase. Permits for new construction are down by over 17% year over year as new homes starts. Now, in our area, we don't have the subdivisions, the massive new construction. We'll have a subdivision here. We'll have some townhouses here. We'll have some McLean enclave here or there on Route 7 and whatnot.
Yeah, but for our area, it's mostly one-offs, right? You tear down a house to build a new house. So but when you're talking new construction in these plans, that's a whole different thing. And I tend to agree that it will decrease because everything's got more expensive.
Builders are pulling back.
But what does that do for the future?
It's
causing the same
log
thing
jams it even more.
It log jams it. So if these builders aren't doing the work now, we're going to see another the same thing happen in a couple of years because there weren't enough new construction starts.
Number 8, not all markets are created equal. You'll like this one, Shawn. Yes. This is I feel like you wrote this one. Markets where home price growth rose the fastest in recent years are expected to experience a disproportionate swing on the downside. For example, markets in areas that had an influx of remote workers who flocked to cheaper housing during the pandemic will likely see prices fall by a greater percentage than other parts of the country.
100%. That's what I've been saying the whole time. And, when I was looking back at different markets and watching the Arlington market, I'm like, man, if we would have owned a property here, it went up X percent, where Arlington only went up 10%. That one went up 20, right? Well, that's a good thing that we didn't go up 20%. We went up. Did you ever hear that? The slow, turtle wins the race over the rabbit, right? Because the rabbit stops and it's going to, fall back. And so that's exactly what's going to happen in these markets that's brought up really quickly.
I could have sworn you said this exact thing. Maybe Matthew Gardner, the economist, has been watching the show. Or, it's obviously the most, obvious thing in the world is that the remote cities are probably not going to be sustainable forever at those high prices. Number 9, affordability will continue to be a major issue. So, talking about first-time home buyers, essentially, dude, I'm not sold on the 2-1 buy down. I was talking with a client and he was explaining the buy down to me, and you could tell he was a little uncertain of it. And I'm like, dude, how much are you putting down? He's like, 40 or 50% down payment. And then he's like, all we need to do is ask for $8,000 back. And I was like, all right, if you're putting down 40% of the down payment, you don't ask for $8,000 back. Let's simplify things. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer. So affordability will continue to be a major issue. I definitely agree with this.
I agree with it 100%. Look at our stock market. Our stock market has fallen. Another reason that prices rose so quickly was because there was a lot of money in the markets. The markets had exploded. And so people were like, holy cow, I just made 30% on this stock, right? And so they were pulling that money out and they're buying houses. Now we're seeing the opposite. That market is falling pretty quickly. If you look at the tech stocks, there was an article the other day that they lost $1 trillion in value, which is insane. So think about what that has done to affordability on the down payment side. Then you look at the affordability on prices with the high interest rates. Naturally, it's going to be tough.
Number 10, government will start to take housing more seriously. Essentially, what the author is stating is that counties and states are going to start adjusting their land use policies to free up more land for housing.
Okay.
Maybe this is apartment conversions in our area. Maybe it's zoning commercial or industrial to residential in other areas. I could definitely see this happening. I hope the old arm of the government doesn't get, their hand too far into the cookie jar because,
Yeah.
I don't want, too much overreach. But, if you're going to tell me that city council or the county board is working on ways to create more housing where housing wasn't before, I think I could be on board for that.
Yeah, I think I could be too. One thing that I wish they would do is maybe look at the tax assessed values and make sure that they're assessing
Well, they're
these
pretty low in Arlington.
in Arlington. Are they?
Compared to City of Alexandria, they are.
City of Alexandria, you're right. They go high.
Do you ever see tax assessed values in Arlington that are higher than the sales price?
I did recently.
How often does that happen?
Not very often.
Okay.
But it's also that we've seen such an increase, and they've had such high values for such a long time. Now their tax rate is pretty low as well. But, some jurisdictions are a lot different. Like, honestly, it was weird. I was looking at Ocean City, right? Ocean City properties.
Okay.
And say there was a property for $550,000. That thing would be tax assessed at $300 or $250. I'm like, how are they doing this? Like, did they just see a huge pop? Or is it that they just don't reassess very often? Because our county reassesses every year. But I wonder, as if we start seeing these prices drop, will the counties also follow suit and drop those accordingly, or will they stay where they are?
No, it's tough. I mean, you get a lot of services in Arlington. Do you feel like you're not getting the service for your tax dollar in Arlington?
I do. I feel like
you feel
I
you
live.
do?
No,
Okay.
yeah, I feel like I live in one of the best areas you can live. I mean, we are so spoiled here. We have so much at our fingertips. I love where I live. Yeah, I pay for it.
Well, with talking about commercial, I think that could be also an issue because if you're not getting the commercial real estate tax revenue, you got to get it from the residential tax revenue.
You're 100% correct there. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our second topic. This comes to us locally from ARL Now. Do you say ARL Now the correct way, or do you say ARL Now?
I say ARL Now.
ARL Now. Good man.
Thank you.
Legal Insider, sponsored column, how the housing market can impact your security clearance, comes to us from Barry and Barry, John Barry and Kimberly Barry. So how the housing market can impact your security clearance, essentially when it comes to foreclosures and short sales. A lot of people in this area have security clearances, and some of them are very proud of their security clearance. Like you'll hear two people in the gym talking about what level of security clearance that they have.
Yeah.
So apparently foreclosures can impact your security clearance. So I don't have a security clearance, no desire to get one. So this was news to me. I feel like a lot of people out there, I didn't know that this could impact. So, I mean, first of all, let's break it down. Foreclosure versus short sale. Can we just do like an overarching, how is a short sale different than a foreclosure?
Short sale is you're agreeing with the bank that, hey, I need to sell this. Will you give me forgiveness? I'll give you this much money, and it won't go as negatively towards my record. Foreclosure is like, hey, dude, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. The bank then takes over, and it hurts your credit a lot more.
So if a homeowner owes, as an example, $300,000 on the mortgage, financial crisis forces them to sell the home for $250,000. There's this $50,000 essentially gap that the homeowner owns, but they can talk with their mortgage company and come to an agreement where that $50,000 is just waived.
It could be waived. They could cut it in half. They could say, all right, we're going to put you on a payment plan so that over the next couple of years you can pay that down.
Okay.
And that is where your security clearance will matter. And I love this topic, honestly. I totally forgot about this. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is such a good thing to talk about, because I have had clients in the past that have, we have all had security clearance people. But back in 2008, there were people going through these short sales. It was such a weird market. And this topic came up because one of my clients had a security clearance, and they were like, oh my gosh, I could lose my security clearance if I go through this. Luckily, they worked it all out and never lost their security clearance. But it was one of those things that it's only happened once or twice in my career, and I was like, I totally forgot about it. But yes, absolutely, it can affect you, because how many times have you had people call, like, hey, can you do an interview with me about so-and-so person?
Yeah.
So many times. In this area, it's very prevalent. So I've done that probably 15 times. And, you have to answer questions. And the thing is, as being this person's real estate agent, you have to answer the questions truthfully, and they might ask you, hey, did they go through this, whatever. But I just love the topic that most people don't think about this. And a lot of people in this area do have security clearances, and we could see a price drop in values. And if it does, and you foreclose, you could lose that security clearance. And I think it goes to a board, and they will kind of actually look at each step to see, if they feel that you should lose that security clearance. So it could be a big problem for a lot of people.
Short sale provides the homeowner with the ability to obtain forgiveness. And the board you may have been talking about, Department of Defense, Department's Office of Hearings and Appeals. Essentially, one basis for the favorability of short sales is that the homeowner it's like involuntary, where if a foreclosure were to happen, it shows irresponsible financial moves and willingness to play by the rules. So foreclosure could very well impact your security clearance. Short sale, it may have a tick on your credit report, but certainly not to the extent of the foreclosure.
Yeah, and these are unforeseen circumstances a lot of times where you find yourself in a not that it was your fault, right? Originally it wasn't your fault, but there's ways that you can talk to that bank and say, listen, I don't want you to foreclose on me. I don't want to have to go through this. And, these people are employed and they have a security clearance. They're getting paid. Why are you not paying your mortgage? Why are you not able to keep up with this? And, one reason is because they're selling and they want to move to another house, or they're selling and moving out of the area. And that's where you got to find that if they're moving out of the area for a different job, then why are they doing this? And the property values have dropped so far that they can no longer afford. A lot of these people might have done VA loans, right? VA loans, 100%. And then, you do 100% financing and all of a sudden the values drop 5, 10%. You got to come up with 5 or 10%. And this is where that could really impact those people. Prior military, now have security clearances, going to sell because, they're moving out of the area for a new job. Hey, you're losing money, then you got to make this up to the bank, or else you could lose your whole job entirely.
Comes down to, are you going to be a security risk, obviously? And,
exactly.
If you're going through a foreclosure, about to have a foreclosure, there could be a security risk where you may be persuaded to do things wouldn't normally do, or if you have just had a foreclosure. So definitely interesting, especially in this area. So thank you, Barry and Barry, for that post.
Yeah, very cool topic.
All right, let's move on to in or out, whether Shawn Battle is in or out on 3 different properties. Shawn, let's start just outside of Oregon. This comes to us from CNBC Make It. 73-year-old pays $370 a month to live in a plane he bought for $100,000 from a salvage yard. Quote unquote, I have no regrets. So let me try to paint a picture, because there's a lot of moving parts here. The only part not moving is the plane. So in the early 70s, Bruce Campbell paid $25,000 for 10 acres of land. So he has this land, he paid off the land, and he's an engineer type, right? This engineer type of guy. And then he saw a plane salvage yard where they're just lined up wing to fuselage, and he's like, you know what, that's it. That's the dream. I want to own a plane at some point. So he eventually bought a plane from a salvage yard for $100,000, and they flew it into the Portland airport, and then in the middle of the night they essentially wheeled it through the city so they wouldn't disturb anyone. It's like centimeters between parked cars and stuff, and there's like a newspaper clipping of them dragging it to the destination. And now he's paid off the mortgage of the land. He may have even bought that in cash. And then he bought the plane for $100,000 in cash. And so his only expenses are the property taxes and the electricity, which add up to $370 a month. He lives there in the plane, in the woods, about 15 minutes outside of Portland. I don't think it's in the middle of nowhere. For $370 a month, he lives there 6 months out of the year, and then he apparently has a sweetheart in Tokyo, and he lives in Tokyo for 6 months out of the year. So, Shawn, are you in or out in living in a abandoned plane? I'm just going to call it an abandoned plane for 6 months out of the year for $370 a month.
Heck yeah, man. This is so cool. I love this. I love the fact that it's thinking outside the box. People live in mobile homes. Why not a mobile plane, right? Hey, I could wheel this thing anywhere if I wanted to, kind of. But I love the concept. This is such thinking outside the box. You have land. What am I going to do with it? hey, an old airplane. I mean, you know, it's going to be narrow, but some of these planes get, you know, those fuselages are pretty wide in some instances. I think it's really cool. I would definitely, if I was in that circumstance, I'd do it. Heck yeah.
There's a video for it. You just got to watch the video. The gentleman, the 73-year-old, he might as well be 13 with the energy and jubilation he has.
That's cool.
You know, the inside of the plane is a little helter-skelter, but, you know, it's a plane from, geez, I don't know, the 70s. Plane actually had some history, Shawn. The airline's owner was Aristotle Onassis, who married the former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis at the time of his death. So kind of some cool history there.
Even
and then he does take guests to see the plane, like guests schedule tours and stuff. So you can just see like the look on his face when he's walking people around the plane.
He's ecstatic about it. This is great. There's a picture of him standing on the wing in between trees. It's the coolest thing ever. I love this. And not only that, I mean, this is a moneymaker, right? I mean, this is a huge moneymaker as far as, again, Airbnb-wise. If you wanted to do that while he's gone for the 6 months, you're Airbnb-ing it and making money.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
I think
cool.
I wanted to be out on it, but like the guy is just so likable that I think I got to be in on him, like just living out his dream and just him doing Bruce, you know?
I love it. Do Bruce, baby.
All right, so let's move on to the next house, the next apartment, I should say. This also comes to us from CNBC Make It. Man, the suggested video really hooked me in.
See that? Yeah, they got
My New York City apartment is the size of a parking spot. So this is a Manhattan East Village apartment that is 95 square feet. It is $1,100 per month. Alex Verhaeg, 23-year-old, has been living in here for 2 years. The bathroom is shared, and there's no, common amenities. But, Shawn, are you in or out in living in New York City in 95 square feet for $1,100 a month?
You know, there's something to be said about living very, without much, right? Minimalist. And I kind of like that style of living, not having a lot of crap. But 95 square feet is really, really small. And that's like living in a closet. I would get so claustrophobic. There's no way that I could do it. And the fact that you don't have your own bathroom would drive me nuts.
Well, one of the reasons that he wanted to do this is because he doesn't have roommates. And while technically he doesn't have anyone else living in the same door as him, the building is his roommate, right? It's like living in a big house where you all have separate rooms, and then you walk down the hall to use the toilet or to use the shower.
Yeah.
And he's got a twin bed. So he's got a twin bed. He has to sleep diagonally because he can't. He looks kind of tall. He's got a hot plate. He's got like a mini fridge, and he's got a two-top table.
Yeah.
And he's going on year 3 of living here.
I mean, some people can do it. Now, $1,100 in New York City is pretty sweet, right? I mean,
you've been to the East Village? I'm a fan of the East Village. Now, it's no West Village, but I do enjoy the East Village. And for $1,100, it's not bad.
Hey, you're in New York City. You're living the dream. You don't have much space, but
he's a part-time barber, part-time bike messenger, content creator. He's moved to New York City to try to make it. Dude, I respect the hustle. I'm in for like 1 year. I think I could do 1 year. I lived in 250 square feet. I did that for 2 years. Anything,
it's a cool place. You did cool things with it.
I did.
It's very neat.
Anything smaller would just be would be tough. So I'm in for a year, but not for 3 years.
Yeah, I'm out. I couldn't do it. I think it's really awesome that he's doing this, that he's able to live in this, that he's taking responsibility. He said, you know what, I want to live in New York City. I don't care if it's small. I'm going to do what I enjoy doing, and I'm going to live within my means. And that's what he's doing. He's living within his means, and I wish everybody would think about living within their means instead of buying these gargantuan houses or things that they don't need and then finding themselves in financial trouble. This is living within his means.
How does this apartment compare to your brother's former apartment in New York City?
It's pretty close. His is bigger. This is probably the size. Yeah, he had a kitchen. His was more like, how many square feet is this? 95?
95.
His was just under 400.
So triple digits.
Yeah.
So he had triple digits.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to our final topic. This comes to us from NBC Washington. Millennials bought an abandoned high school for $100,000 and turned it into a 31-unit apartment building. Take a look inside. Jesse Wigg, Adam Colucci, and Dan Spanovich purchased an abandoned high school for $100,000 and spent over $2 million turning it into an apartment building. So they bought the abandoned high school in Munhall, Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, and it was listed for sale in 2019. And they thought that they could get about 60 apartments with the 50,000 square feet in the building. They ended up with only about 25,000 leasable square feet, which amounted to 31 apartments. They finished the project in October of 2021. That's when they started leasing up the building. 29 one-bedroom apartments, two two-bedroom apartments. The one-bedrooms go for $1,400, and then the two bedrooms go for $1,650. It's all fully leased up, and the crew, I believe, has bought another abandoned school and is working on this project again. But Shawn, are you in or out on buying an abandoned school and turning it into an apartment building?
I love it. Yeah, I'm in. I think this was awesome. If you know Munhall, you know.
If you know Munhall, no one knows Munhall.
All right,
Who knows Munhall?
I'll explain this to you.
It's not New York City.
Pittsburgh, man. So Munhall is just outside of Homestead. Homestead was this area right along the Monongahela River. I think it was the Mon. No, whatever. Right along the river that had industry. So there was a smokestacks, and this is where they would create steel. And over the years, those steel mills just left. And so what they did was they created this new shopping plaza in that area that still kept the smokestacks, and they're lit up at night. But then you have like a Dave & Buster's and all this other stuff. So that area has transitioned a lot. And Munhall is just outside this, kind of up on the hill. And to be able to buy a school for $100,000, granted, I didn't know they were going to put $2 million in it, which is insane for Pittsburgh, that investment kind of thing in there. But when you think about it, they have 31 units now at probably under $90,000. I don't even know what the total cost is, but $80,000 per unit. And they're renting them that out. That's a big profit that they're making every month now. Yeah, it was a huge risk. It was big risk. And it was, I'm sure, a lot of time and energy to get it. But man, it's paying off for them. And now they can take that equity and take it somewhere else.
I love the idea. And if they were to share their pro forma or some sort of breakdown of their estimates, I'd probably be in on it if I saw it was producing, good returns. But to take on a sort of project where you got to put $2 million into it, and maybe they were only estimating to spend $1 million or 1.5. And another thing, I mentioned this earlier, were they predicting to get 60 apartments and winding up with only 31 apartments? That to me scares me. Now, I am all in on old schools, as we've done a recent episode. Yeah. I'm all in on old schools. I'm all in on old churches. I'm all in on multifamily. But just looking at this, purchasing, they say it's purchased for $100,000. Well, you got to put $2 million into it. To me, they purchased it for $2.1 million. Maybe they got crazy good construction loan. Maybe I'm the idiot. They're the ones making all the money. Again, I'd love to see a breakdown. Maybe I think one of these gentlemen talks about it on his TikTok.
To look that up. It's so basically it's coming out to a cost of $70,000 per unit, right? Somewhere around there, $70,000 per unit. Now, in Munhall, you could probably buy a whole house for $70,000. Somewhere around, $100,000. I mean, it's not very expensive, I believe. I haven't looked at values there in a long time, but it's one of those areas up on the hill that, it's not going to be super expensive. Maybe 120, 150, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to go through that whole process. That process is horrible. I'm sure it took a long time, but the end result, they're killing it.
When they look back and they own this property 10 years from now, when all of Pittsburgh is booming,
yep.
I think they're probably going to be pretty happy with what they ended up doing.
They will. It was a good investment, guys.
All right, well, would love to hear if you think it's a good investment. So be sure to drop us a comment below, hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already subscribed, if you're into the show. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.